Hi, it's me, Imogen, and today I'm going to talk about Raymond Carver's What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. This is a short story collection published in 1981. I believe all the stories are set in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, which I've never been to, so I can't really compare. I would say that what's explored is quite universal, but I would assume if you've been there, then maybe you can recognize the settings. But overall, pretty much every story is about people talking or just being around each other in kind of suburban areas. It seems like there's kind of this undercurrent of like dissatisfaction of people playing roles that don't really reflect their inner selves and their inner desires, and the way that that tends to kind of darken one's life. Almost every story has this sort of dark sense hanging over it. I mean, a lot of the stories are involving death, abuse, trauma of different kinds. And so it's not really a light read. I would say I read typically a lot of darker things and subject matters, and like it's usually bearable because it's like fiction. But there was something about this that it felt very real. Like I felt like I was reading things that could have really just been actual snapshots of people's lives, and that made it harder to read at times. I would say it's very much a product of its time. I don't know if Raymond Carver deliberately was making a point about it, but almost every story involves women suffering at the hands of men or at the hands of society. And that is also a bit heavy, I would say. I believe that his stories were published in another collection in an unedited form. This was edited, and so the stories are a lot shorter. The short stories are shorter. And so I don't know if my impression will be completely whole, as I have not read the unedited versions. But my impression of the edited ones is that they are a lot darker, in the sense that there are less of a conclusion to a lot of the stories. And as a result, I do find that the perspectives can be a little bit repetitive in terms of infidelity and injustice and just sort of unresolved things, which I found worked to an extent. But apparently that's not entirely how they were originally written by Raymond Carver. So I don't know. I can't say completely my overview of his philosophy or his viewpoint on women or anything, but I did find this collection was quite harsh, which I did struggle with at points. But I think there is definitely something very universal about it. I mean, I've never been middle-aged in the American suburbs in the late 20th century, full of regret and anguish and with a drinking problem, as most of these characters have, and which Carver dealt with himself. And that obviously is also kind of a part of that era. But I could still really find familiarity in these human feelings and experiences written about. And the writing is very sparse, which I think actually makes it more universal and more relatable in a way. It doesn't feel like some far out depiction of life. Like each story feels very just kind of mundane in a way, even when kind of ridiculous things take place. There are a couple of stories in there that were probably like really just especially unpleasant. uniquely, I would say. And really, you could really delve into it quite deeply, I think. And so I would like to read perhaps his less edited versions of his stories, to have a better grasp on him as a writer, because I find him very compelling and very interesting. There's like a lot of the stories are people talking to each other and having discussions, or just experiencing one another as people with all their flaws and just kind of conflicts. But there was something really lonely about it, this sort of lonely atmosphere, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was just really well done. You really just feel like you're looking into just brief moments in real people's lives, and the stories are very short, so it really is just a brief little window into people's existences, though fictional, I guess. But I do wonder how much of it is taken from his own life or his own experiences. There's just something about that is it's just filled with something very real and very human. And I really appreciate that about it. I just really enjoy kind of mundane things, like writing about people, just sort of what they do in a few hours of their day. I just find that a really interesting part of life to talk about, and not always the big grandiose ideas and questions and answers and seeking out, grand things. Sometimes about being human is just really is the mundane things like cups of coffee and mistakes made, insomnia, little things like that, very human. And I really like reading about or engaging in any art about this sort of thing. So I thought it was a very special collection for that. If you're into that sort of thing, I would highly, highly recommend it. And if anyone knows more about him or his other works, then please comment about it, because I would love to know more. So yeah, thank you for watching.